morning and welcome back to WKNI TV 25. We have the Honorable Mike Jones Jr., our state representative. We've been talking about some of the stuff going on in the national level and how it's affecting some of the state stuff and the military bases, the military contractors, and the possibilities of some of the things happening. The federal government, and I guess I'm almost for state separation, okay, to a point, when it comes to this stuff. But when the federal government starts telling the state how to run itself, they don't know anything about the state of Alabama.
Correct.
Okay, but yet they're going to tell us that we have to do these things, and folks here in Alabama are getting fed up with that, and you're hearing that, I'm sure.
I do, and we've been hearing it for quite a while, and I don't necessarily disagree. We're being put in positions as a state that, I mean, frankly, we can't afford. And when you're being told by the government, when you're being told by any government a mandate, but they don't provide the funding for long-term keeping the mandate in place, that's a tough thing to be placed in, a tough position. And this Obamacare and Medicaid in general, this is one of those issues that's become a divisive political issue, but it's been placed upon us by the federal government.
Well, you said the word Medicaid. We've got a lot of people out there that are concerned with Obamacare. And I'll tell you what, did you go online and look at that 21-page application?
I have not. I do get some calls from different issues. That's actually not one I've had yet, but I'll be getting it probably soon. But, one of the things that we're looking at is this mandate that our state take on a sizable number of new Medicaid patients and new Medicaid enrollees. And our governor has basically said, and I've met with him personally, I ate breakfast with him a few weeks ago, and we discussed the issue. And I like his approach. His approach is, until we fix the thing that we've got now, the mechanism we have now, then we shouldn't be trying to add to it. And if we could fix what we have now, that would help us long term. I don't disagree with that. There are some pieces of legislation that have already come through the House dealing with Medicaid fraud, dealing with how to better supervise what we have, making it more of a regional approach instead of a statewide approach. And I like that. That way you can, it's just like, it's like the federal government doesn't really know Alabama. Well, Alabama doesn't know every county in the entire state, and we're all different, the north part of the state.
That's why we have representatives.
Correct. And so I like that approach. That approach makes sense. I know that the governor's committed to going down that path and trying to put our state in position to more efficiently provide Medicaid to our citizens. And in fact, there's a public hearing, I believe, tomorrow at 10:30 in the House chamber on just this issue. So that ought to be an interesting public hearing. I hope that I'll be able to attend that.
Well, we hope you will too, because Mike, we need you up there to defend us. I mean, and I hate to say the word defend for a state representative, but that's what it's become up there. It's become a battleground.
It definitely this year has been unlike any of the prior years, and I've said that several times already. In the prior two sessions that I've been a part of, it's been proactive. We've been really going on the offensive, trying to put things in place to help promote industry, to recruit jobs, and that's been our number one goal. This session has been drastically different. It's been there's been a lot of defense we've had to play. I've had several people ask me why HB 8 has not passed, and that's the bill that I'm bringing and sponsoring, and that deals with protecting our Second Amendment state rights as far as gun ownership and gun restrictions. And frankly, we've passed the budget isolation resolution, which is a pivotal part to the bill that you have to pass. We've added a simple amendment that helped the sheriffs and made them feel more comfortable, and it's ready for final passage. But there's a lot of politics behind the scenes that nobody really gets to see, that it's become more of a chess match, that we've been trying to defend the bill and keep it from being attacked with special interest amendments. And so we've been playing that game behind the scenes, trying to block some of those things. And that's what you don't see, and that's part of my job, is to do just that.
Well, when you say politics, when I wanted to stop right there, okay, politics behind the scene. All right, you said it, I think, and described it, okay, with special interest.
Right.
Why is that allowed? I mean,
it's part of it's it happens federal, state, local. I mean, that happens everywhere.
But we're smart enough to know that there's special interests out there.
Sure.
Okay, that is not looking for the overall. They're looking for their own special interests.
Correct.
All right, and they have no game in the play when it comes to the entire state. They don't really care. They care about their special interest. All right. Why does that become it? Now I know I'm not sitting up there where you are, but if I was a state representative, I would sit there and say, you know what? What would happen to me? All you state or special interest people jump in the pool and go swimming. I don't want nothing to do with you, and I'm not supporting anything you do. What would happen to me?
Well, honestly, I don't know. I don't think anything would happen. And in a way, on some
The
issues,
monies would dry up, wouldn't they?
Well, the monies don't play as the role they used to. When we passed some of those changes in ethics rules back in 2010, that had a dramatic impact on how money flows in Montgomery and in the state. And so it's not like it used to be. It's a little different. It's more about intimidation. It's more about, like we talked about earlier.
How can they intimidate you if it's not about money?
It's if an elected official gets too worried or more worried about being reelected than they do about the job.
But why would a
each vote.
special interest have anything? See, this is, I want to dig a little bit into this. Okay.
And I'll give you an example. In this state, I've been working on this HB8, this bill, and this is an example that I'll probably talk more about in the future. In this state, the NRA, frankly, is run by some very liberal, strong Democrats in this state. And one reason you're seeing some of the members of the Democratic Party bringing some of the gun bills is it's not that they really want to pass the bills. They want to put conservative leaders into a position of what we call making bad votes. And so they'll try to put amendments on bills that have nothing to do with gun interest so that we would vote those amendments off because they don't need to be in those particular bills. And it'll reflect as we voted against guns. And that's some of that chess game I was telling you about. And so it's not those are examples where it's really not about the NRA. It's more about the two parties and being put in those political positions.
Well, Mike, I said this here before, and I'll ask you, and I know you're going to give me the straight up answer.
Right.
All right. When did it become an issue between Democrats and Republicans and not about the citizens?
It's always been about that. And as far as some people, now for me, as you know, or you may know, back on, I think it was February 28th or the end of February, there was a vote that took place, and I was put in an awkward position. I made a promise to everybody in my district when I ran for this office that I would never vote and support a bill that I had not read and fully understood. And we had a bill that came through. It was known at the time as the Flex Bill, the School Flexibility Bill, and it came through at the late hours and it changed dramatically. And we had a very, very short period of time to read the bill. And
might have been a reason for that.
well, and basically by the time I was given a copy of the bill, and I asked for a copy as soon as I heard about it, about 20 minutes later I got a copy of it. And so I had about 40 minutes to read the bill and to try to fully understand it. And frankly, it's a very, very complicated bill. And it's not one that anybody can do a quick read on and really comprehend everything it does. In fact, there have been agencies in this state that have taken 2 and 3 weeks to read over that bill and still haven't quite figured out everything it does. So, I was put in a position of making a choice. Do I honor the promise and the commitment I made to my constituents, or do I vote with the vast majority of my party? And it came down to that, I'm up in Montgomery to represent the people here at home, and so I voted against the bill. And the reason why is it would have required me to break my promise for the first time, and I just wasn't going to do that.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When you say that, I'm glad you did it, because that's the way it should be. If you're not sure about it, don't vote for it, and abstain.
Well, and if you have a conflict of interest, like if I had something that dealt with my personal business or something, that's an abstention. That's when I would. And if it's about a local bill that deals with another area of the state that I shouldn't be touching, it's really not my business, or our people's business, then I abstain to those because that's not our business. But when it's about any other vote that deals with general powers or constitutional amendments, the people didn't send me up there to abstain. They sent me up there to cast a vote up or down. And when I'm put into a position like I was, that I had to vote to support a bill or not, without really knowing everything that it did, my choice was I voted against it. And I've caught a little heat from that, and that's That's part of it, but ultimately I represent my district, and I'm going to always represent my district.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate the honesty on that, Mike. And I'm going to hit the nerve center of local government. When I say local, I mean state. We're out of money, right?
You know, in one budget, yes. In the other budget, we're growing. We're getting better. The Education Trust Fund budget is actually getting better.
All right. This is why I asked you the way I did.
Okay.
In one aspect, I look and I see the glass empty.
Mm-hmm.
In the other glass, I see it's almost overflowing.
It's not overflowing, but it's growing. You can't say it's overflowing. It's not there at that,
All right,
that point.
filling.
It's filling up. And the Education Trust Fund budget is the one that deals exclusively with education. Schools, teachers, bus drivers, you name it, all those things. And it's driven primarily through sales tax. And you know, right now, sales are increasing. Businesses are starting to grow. You're seeing slow growth. And when you see that slow growth, you start seeing an increase in funding for that budget. And so there has been a steady growth of money coming back to that budget. But by no means is it overflowing. Well, I wish it were, but it's not. The other budget is the general fund budget, and that budget is very, very slow to react because the funding that goes into that budget, frankly, is going to always be slow to react. It's coming primarily from property taxes and fees that are generated throughout the state. And fees are generally set, they're fixed, and so rarely are they changing. Property taxes are slow because you're not seeing yet the sales of properties and homes is not escalating as fast as other sales are. And that's a normal slow response. And so the general fund is much, much slower to rebound. And that's where you're seeing the biggest struggle happening.
Going back to the bill that you voted on,
Mm-hmm.
and voted against, I just got to do what's his name? Paul Rand? What?
Rand Paul.
Yeah, Rand Paul. Yeah, Rand Paul. Why couldn't you do a Rand Paul? Until
there's in that particular instance, it was coming from a conference committee, and in our rules, there's only limited debate in a conference committee report, and specifically, it's about an hour debate. That's all that's allowed in by rule, and those are rules we set up, you know, at the beginning of the quadrennium. And that rule, frankly, has been in place for a long time. That's not very much a new rule. And so it was a strategic thing. In fact, as moves go, political moves go, it was a very good political strategic move as far as the different parties making moves against each other because it was within the rule.
all right, you voted on it. Do you regret the vote that you did?
No, not at all. I wouldn't change how I voted. I've met with our leadership as recently as last week, and I've had to talk about it more with them. And I explained that I was put in a position that would have required me to dishonor my commitment that I'd made. And people who know me well know that that's just not me. I'm not going to do that.
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Okay. Now that you know the bill, because you've read it and you've thought about it, would you change your vote now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to get it out there.
Right.
All right. We're going to take another quick break and pay some bills here. And we're going to get into some of the bills that you got pending. I got to ask you, before we go, I know he loves this when I start. He said, there you go. He's going to commercial break. Yeah, whenever. But no, the Senate has been a lot more difficult this time around. Why?
Well, the Senate is a smaller.
Why do you think?
It's a smaller group of individuals. It's 35 members.
Right.
And those are individuals that are closer to taking that next leap, typically into higher
Politics.
higher politics. And so you've got some real strong personalities in that group.
Not everybody's like our Jimmy Hall.
Correct. And Senator Hawley's up there, and Senator Hawley is he's kind of what I refer to as a foundational member. He's that member who knows the institutional background and knowledge. He knows the rules on the back of his hand. And he's been there protecting people he represents for many, many, many years. There's other members that are relatively new that this is just a stop on the way up.
Right.
And it's more about sound bites. It's more about media exposure. It's more about getting their name out, whether it's for good or bad, getting their name out more and getting more name recognition. And when you have that type of personalities in one room, it sometimes makes for an interesting day. And so you see some of that. I will say this, they are passing some bills lately a little bit more readily than we are in our body. We're passing roughly about 2 bills a day. Some people think that's great, others not. When you have some real good bills lined up, ready to pass, and they're necessary, it's frustrating and on our side. But I think it'll happen. We still have some days left.
Well, I'm not going to give Senator Hawley an opportunity to say he is second to call in. I did try to call before you, okay? I wanted him to come in, but I guess he was tied up or something going on.
Well, we've all been very busy lately. It's been tough. You did the wise thing. You called my secretary in my law office, and and she had, in fact, I didn't find out about it until I think it was Friday morning, and I said, "Oh, okay." so anyway, but
cost me another lunch. What can I say?
So you knew who to call.
Yeah. Who are you going to call?
But it's lately we've been very busy. My family and even my law office, when I come home, they say that I look like I'm about to fall out, and we're working long hours. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and that's part of our job. And and it takes its toll over time, but we're going to get there. I've got a list of bills that I'm working on, more than I ever intended this session, and there's no way to know if I'll even get close to passing a piece of them, much less all of them. But we're going to work these bills, and there's some good legislation that I'm working on, and others are working on, and hopefully we'll get to it as we get through the session.
I know we're going to go to commercial break, but I got to ask you this. We kind of skipped over it before, okay? If the state of Alabama, or have they, I guess, accepted to allow Obamacare to happen in the state? I know there's some states around, like Florida.
Right, we have not. Our governor's taken the position that that's not the role we're going to take. As of this point, the legislature is right behind the governor on this.
So, in other words, we are not going to be bound by Obamacare.
Well, we're taking the position that we're choosing to do our own thing. We're not going to be bound by what they're telling us we have to do like everybody else, which the way it's kind of like a bait and switch. The enticement is
like that.
Hey, join us and we'll pay for everything for the first 2 or 3 years. And then after that, you start having to pay for a big hunk of it. Well, that big hunk is sizable. And frankly, I don't see how most states could ever afford. I think some states are saying, hey, they're paying for it the first 2 or 3 years. Let's jump on board, and not worrying about how much it'll cost down the road. And we're trying to look further ahead than just today, and that's wise. I think that's the smart approach.
I agree. I agree.
And so when you start looking ahead and you see how hard it is right now for us to pay the bills, and then to think that we may have to come up with another $100 or $200 million, that would be very difficult.
Well, I was for Obamacare 100%. Now I would say I'm for Obamacare probably 60% right now, and I'll explain that to you off camera. But I think the special interest that we talk about, like your pharmaceuticals, your doctors, your hospitals, are against Obamacare because, well, we just had Charles Smith tell us not a few weeks ago when we were down there at your town hall meeting. He just closed the second store he had here in Andalusia. He couldn't afford it. And he said when Obamacare comes, he says, watch out. He says, this is going to be more frequent than not.
And I think that's some accuracy to it. I'll tell you something. I've been trying to get a copy of the Affordable Care Act for quite a while. I finally got a copy about a week ago. And it's in my office in Montgomery, and it's one of those things that anytime I have gaps of time, I'm trying to read through it.
13,000 pages.
It's roughly about that thick. It comes in 5 volumes, and it's very tiny print. And it's a slow read. And I'm only at the very beginning of it. I've promised myself that I'm going to read through the entirety of it. It'll probably take a couple of months to read through the entirety of it. It's obviously very complicated, and like some other pieces of legislation I've seen recently, there's lots of variables in it that so far I don't see that those variables have been tied up. In other words, who knows what they really mean. And that's the reason why this bill is so massive and so difficult to predict, is that when you have that many gray areas in a piece of legislation, it allows the bureaucracy and the different departments to be creative in how they handle those issues. And how do I know how that one department is going to handle or interpret a certain thing? And so that's the reason why this bill is very difficult, even for those who support it. It's difficult to grasp, is that it's just enormous in size.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. We're the clock is sitting there ticking away, and old Carlton over there is like, he said he was going 20 minutes to go to a commercial break, and he's tapping. I can hear him. So we're going to go ahead and take that quick commercial break, come right back with Mike Jones Jr., our state representative. We thank you.
Keep it real.
Keep God in it. We love you all. God bless you. We'll be right back.